bisa in English?
Yes, don't worry at all.
Terima kasih atas kehadiran teman-teman. Ini webinar kami yang kedua um, dengan menghadirkan seseorang yang dari jam di sana yang kita beda 12 jam. Beliau masih tanggal 14, kita sudah tanggal 15. Beliau adalah seorang yang sudah warawiri dalam dunia human rights, jadi hak asasi manusia. Beliau itu sudah pokoknya senior lah di bidangnya. Semoga semuanya masih sehat, puasa, masih bisa beribadah. Tema kita adalah tentang pendekatan yang berbasis human rights, berbasis hak asasi manusia ketika situasi disaster atau situasi bencana, situasi yang kita tidak pernah harapkan sebenarnya, tetapi kita harus menghadapinya. Disaster itu tidak selamanya earthquake, gempa bumi atau gunung meletus atau atau banjir bandang misalnya, tetapi menghadapi sebuah pandemi atau penyebaran penyakit yang tidak hanya dialami oleh satu negara tapi oleh satu dunia seperti ini, itu kita memang membutuhkan banyak hal untuk menghadapinya. Strateginya seperti apa, tapi itu kan lebih kepada bagaimana tidak hanya masyarakat menghadapinya seperti apa, tapi negara pun harus besar keterlibatannya di dalam menghadapi apa yang terjadi saat ini. Beliau adalah, saya akan membacakan ya sedikit banyak sekali pengalaman beliau sebagai international human rights expert. Beliau itu namanya ya, kita mulai dari namanya, Profesor Dr. Miriam Estrada-Castillo, lahir di Equador. Beliau adalah putri dari Pablo Estrada Valle. Jadi itu partai utama di Equador di era tahun 50, tapi itu menjadi sebuah partai yang kuat ya di sana. Beliau pernah menjadi former Minister of Social Welfare of Ecuador. Jadi pernah jadi Menteri Sosial, Kesejahteraan Sosial Ecuador. Terus beliau itu terlibat di dalam peacekeeping operation, terutama yang di bawah UN Security Council. Jadi beliau itu perempuan pertama Ecuador yang ditempatkan di UN peacekeeping. Jadi luar biasa ya kalau lihat karir beliau. Kemudian pernah hadir di Timur Leste yang terkait dengan United Nations UNICEF. Kemudian pernah di National University untuk visiting fellow, dan banyak sekali. Terutama adalah beliau itu salah satu yang menuliskan tentang CEDAW Optional Protocol. Jadi yang Special Task Force for the Organization of the Fourth World Conference on Women. Jadi dialah yang salah satu orang yang menuliskan protokol CEDAW itu. Jadi yang terbiasa dengan isu human rights itu CEDAW pasti kenal dengan CEDAW. Thank you very much for attending this event. I just let everyone knows about your curriculum vitae. You are very expert and I think you're very famous, I think, in your work, Human Rights International. Nice to see you. You can share with us about your experiences about international human rights, especially in disaster management. Now we are facing COVID-19 pandemic, not just in Indonesia, but all over the world. maybe
That's
not.
good.
Yes, so we can learn together how to face it, how to manage it, but in perspective, in human rights approach, because uh, in disaster situations, sometimes we are facing the breaking of human rights. For example, very simple example in Indonesia. Sometimes one who died because of COVID-19, she or he refused to be buried in public. Um, Apa sih pemakaman Nes tuh? Uh, that's
Yeah.
yes, that's breaking the human rights of people. So maybe you can share us about your knowledge, about your experience, especially in Latin America. So I will hand it over to Nessa uh, to guide our discussion today. Silahkan Nes. Terima
Yeah.
kasih.
Just a second, Professor, before you start, I'm going to act as the moderator for the discussion. I want to inform the participants that participants can drop their questions in the comments, and then in order to save time, I'm going to read the questions after Professor Miriam's speech. Jadi peserta harap meninggalkan pertanyaan di kolom komentar selama presentasi atau sesudahnya. Nanti akan saya bacakan, bila cukup waktunya bisa menanyakan langsung. Professor, you can have your presentation for, I think Yanti inform you for 30 minutes, right? But we can extend it if you need more time for like 15 minutes or so. Yeah.
You will tell when should I start and when it will be better for me to close the presentation so that we can have time to exchange experiences and mutual and common information. And particularly, how is the situation over there in India, which is quite interesting also for me. We are at the other side of the world, and still we are facing together this disaster for humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we can.
Let me know when should I start?
You can start now, actually.
Okay.
Yes.
So
the time is yours.
Let me see, because I want to see all of you. It's much better for me.
Okay. Yes, I'm here.
So, thank you so much for this opportunity. As I said before, for me, it's such an extraordinary experience to have the opportunity to be together again, even if I am at the other side of the world, with colleagues and, colleagues, researchers, and scholars who I not only admire and respect, but I love deeply, and have been with me in my mind and in my heart all these years. I cannot forget any of you, because actually you are a very important part in my path and in my professional development and in my human being kind development, as to say. So I am very happy and very grateful for this invitation. Then if I am going to share with you something about this region, let's put together two particular perspectives which are very important in order to address any kind of problem. Let's put together the conceptual part, and on the other hand, let's put together the contextual part. So in the concept, what we are facing is a pandemic that has hit all over the world and has somehow taken unprepared the majority of the countries of the world, so as not to say all. However, on this particular situation, what we could see very clear is that those countries that somehow have policies based and established and designed with a human rights-based approach have had the opportunity to respond quicker and to protect their inhabitants. And this has nothing to do with the level of development of each country. It's totally and completely linked to the way in which they respect and implement at the national level the important policies that should be based on human rights, particularly the Convention on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the right to health, universal health care, proper health care, and a system that will be ready for the inhabitants. I am saying inhabitants, not citizens, everybody in the moment of need. When it comes to Latin America, we cannot talk about such preparedness, unfortunately. Why? Because then we have to place ourselves in the contextual part of the situation. What is Latin America as a region, and how does Latin America manage itself socioeconomic and politically talking? So you know, because you know history, that Latin America was a former colony of Spain. The majority of the Latin American countries were former colonies of Spain, except for Brazil, which is a former colony of Portugal, and a few countries and islands at the north of South America and the Caribbean, which are British former colonies. Okay. However, we can say also that more or less, talking generally, 200 years ago, we got our independence from these powerful countries. We got our independence and we started building our own democracy. 200 years ago. It means that by this time, we should have had a kind of a very strong political order in place. We should have had democracy, a strong democracy, a strong democratical institutions, institutionalized the rule of law, respect for human rights, and a level of development. We haven't, as a region, reached any of those things. We are a very diverse region, a multidisciplinary, multiracial, multi-ethnic region. But we are all together because we, the majority of us, speak Spanish, no, except for Brazil and a few countries speaking English. And we have in common the Catholic religion, which, as you will see, is a kind of problem when it comes to recognition of certain human rights. So, what has been the characteristic of Latin America? The characteristic of Latin America is that Latin America has been fundamentally talking a populist kind of region. We have jumped from one expression of populism to another, to a dictatorship, and come back again to a populist government, you see. So right now, Latin America is, after the dictatorships that were terrible in the history of this region, that were between the 70s and late 80s, after these dictatorships and after our return to democracy, we haven't been able to structure a profound sense of democracy in our inhabitants. On the contrary, we have been moving from one populist government to another, either populist, either from the right or for the left. These last years, these 10 last years approximately in Latin America, there was this movement, this political ideology that was baptized under the name of socialism for the 21st century. And this socialism for the 21st century was using the discourse, the speech, the words of socialism in the real sense of the word, but in truth, they were populists utilizing a kind of a progressive language. So after 10, 12 years of this kind of government, we have faced as like following a kind of a movement that is called, politically speaking, a pendulum. You go to the right, and after you go to the left, but you are never, at least in the region, you are never able to stand still in the middle, you know, and you are never able to start building real foundations of democracy. So we went to the left with this socialism of 21st century, and after that we came back following this so-called political pendulum to the right, to the extreme right. And this is the reason why do we have the president, for example, the president of Brazil, Bolsonaro. I am sure that you know about him. He's a kind of very similar in ideology to Mr. Duterte. So he has the same mentality. And here in Ecuador, we had 10 years of this socialism of 21st century that completely changed the structures of the country, that totally destroyed the structures that were established in the moment that we got our independence from Spain. They started by drafting another constitution and following the same line that Cuba, Venezuela, Argentina had. The idea of a revolutionary Latin America against the North, against the gringos, as we call them, as we call the North American people, and with a kind of a self-assurance on our sovereignty and self-autonomy and self-decision. However, the results of these 10 years, now that we come back to the reality, what we find is devastated countries. This is our reality now, meaning that the so-called revolutionaries, they just took whatever they could of the public budget of the state, the public money, the money of the people, they took it from them. They opened the country for a lot of business that were not precisely legitimate. For example, the improvement on drug dealing or money laundering, and even all the new crimes that humanity is very concerned about, they were brought not only to the country, but to this long path. It's called the long path of tears that comes from Argentina up to Mexico. And if you start checking what has happened with all these countries, then you see that all these countries, all the Latin American countries, are in the majority, no, in a level of corruption that is absolutely like a unseen. So for us, it's totally new, the level of corruption. Not that the corruption is something that we didn't know before, but now the level of corruption is something that you cannot manage and you cannot believe it. That's number one. Number two is the level of impunity. So any kind of crime can be committed and it won't be any repercussion. There is not at all accountability. So together with this, along with these situations, we have violence in an expression that we never have seen before. We have environmental degradation. We have a total lack of institution, a kind of a total divorce of the civil society with the state, with the authorities of the state. So we are, and our level of development has dropped dramatically, no? As a product of this corruption. This is the contextual situation in the moment in which COVID-19 attacks this part of the world. Now, what happens now that COVID has attacked us, the virus, as we call it? The virus, of course, didn't find us with any kind of preparedness, absolutely none, nothing. We didn't have institutions, we didn't have proper hospitals, we didn't have medicines, we didn't have healthcare in place, we didn't have absolutely anything. And not only Ecuador, when I am talking about we didn't have, I am talking about the whole Latin America. As a result of what? As a result of this continuous corruption that has completely destroyed the soul and the social fabric of the society. So we didn't have, of course, a human rights-based approach in any of our public policies. And here an interesting phenomenon. The interesting phenomena is that you can find constitutions that are recognizing human rights, that are obliging everybody, all the public powers, to recognize, implement, respect, and guarantee human rights, but in daily basis, this is only a declaration. So nobody even knows exactly what does it mean a human rights-based approach. We have been able to live this kind of life, like a survival life, because we were not facing a pandemic. Nothing like this pandemic, you see? Nothing is going to happen, so you survive day by day, like swimming against the current, trying to survive according to your efforts, etc. But you didn't have any backup. In the moment that the virus hit us, then the truth came out, and then we found that these hospitals that were inaugurated and cost millions of dollars are only walls with nothing inside. And then all these doctors that were hired with a lot incredible salaries don't know one word about medicine. And all these equipments that they actually bought for any amount of money were actually bad quality, or absolutely old, no modern at all, and not what we need. So it was a total disaster. And this, again, I am saying the whole Latin America, no? There are, of course, certain exceptions, but these exceptions are not as important as to stop me or prevent me to generalize, because this is a general situation. Of course, every country has particularities, no? But talking in general, this is the reality of Latin America now. That is one part of the equation. The second part of the equation is that economically talking, as countries, the budgets are destroyed. In the case of Ecuador, for example, you will see that we had a particular fund that was there in case, just in case, like a savings of the country, just in case that we will face something like this. We were thinking in an earthquake, something like that, in a tsunami, earthquake. maybe the eruption of a volcano or something like that. Never this kind of virus. But the former president decided that why are we going to have that money, saved, and we have to expend the whole money, this kind of backup money. We have to spend it in our day-to-day life so that the country will live a better life. And in reality was that he and his gang, I have to call them like that, they are living the better life because they left the country and all of them became millionaires when they were absolutely poor people when they came to the government. They were very simple and, actually penniless people when they came to the government. In these circumstances, now, taking the example of Ecuador and particularly Guayaquil, which is my city from where I am talking to you, disaster hit us in the most horrible way. Number one, no medicines, no authority to immediately put people in a lockdown, no decision, no political decision, no any contingency plan, no any kind of preparedness, nothing related to readiness, nothing. Hospitals without any kind of resources, either material resources, health resources, professional resources, nothing. So that's the first element. The second element that we experienced also was the fact of our idiosyncrasy, our way of being. Like we Latin Americans are like, don't worry, I mean, it's not like that, you are exaggerating, like very, I don't care. So a lot of people got the virus because at the beginning they were not properly informed. That's one thing. Second, Latin America and Ecuador are places where the social classes division is really very strong. So it happens that the season when the virus attacked was precisely, it was a coincidence that people from the upper class, from the high class, were returning from Europe, particularly from Spain and from Italy, which are the places that they visit regularly, So what happened then? They came, they didn't follow the instructions, the recommendations of the government that, on the other hand, were not, very strict and severely obliged. So they were having weddings and parties to the point that the police had to crash in these weddings and parties in order to stop these parties and to tell people, you are killing yourself. So in a moment, these people, they have people working for them as help. So they have, excuse me, the use of the word, they have servants, they have drivers, they have gardeners, they have cookers, etc. So if they were planning all these kind of social events, they call all these people came, and these people live really in a very poor condition. The places where they work are heaven, highly elegant, but the places where they live are a total mess, no any kind of hygienical conditions for them. So the virus spread in such a way that suddenly we got in Guayaquil, only in my city. I am taking my city, as I said, as an example, because it has been compared with New York, taking into account also the level of the number of inhabitants that Guayaquil has vis-a-vis the number of inhabitants that New York has. So Guayaquil is even in worse conditions than New York. So people start dying. But, you know, 10, 15, 20, 30, 100. And on the other hand, not only lack of accountability, but also lack of transparency. The government saying, we have only 30 people that are sick, we have already, I don't know, 100 people that have gotten better, etc. All these were lies. All these were absolutely lies. This is also that is repeating itself all over Latin America. The governments don't want to say exactly how many victims they have. Why? Here it comes, the corruption factor, because they don't have enough tests, and the tests that they are buying are either falsified, are very cheap, are bad quality, and they are overpriced so that they can make business in the middle of all this disaster. And because of that, more people die. That's the reality. And this is what has happened all over. And then, when the government decided to establish a lockdown, people refused to follow. They didn't want to follow the lockdown. Not because they didn't want, they were for a small amount of time, no? But after that, you have to understand that our people has not an institutional development as for population to have medical insurance or unemployment insurance, absolutely nothing. They live with the money that they can make day by day. And if they don't get out to the streets to sell anything, chicles, water, some candies, whatever, food that they prepare, juice that they prepare, etc., they cannot eat. So people start coming out, and it was impossible to control the virus. That was our reality, and this is a reality that now are living in Peru, in Colombia, in Chile. Chile has declared today, 15, has declared a 100% lockdown because they have a level of illness that they cannot control now. But what you see at the end of the day, this is just details. In reality, what you have is a very weak democracy, almost zero rule of law, complete impunity, 100% corruption, zero accountability, no civil education. There is not the idea of citizenship among the inhabitants of Latin America. You are not used to follow whatever is better for your motherland. No, you are trained to follow whatever is better for yourself. So you are not able to think as a community. You just are able to think individually. So you think as individual that what is the best for you, and you do whatever it takes to do your own will. To the point, I use an example. All the borders were closed, so it was impossible to come via air utilizing. Something happened? Okay, it was impossible to land in Ecuador, but the rule was that you landed in a humanitarian flight because a lot of people stay out of the country and they need to come back. Okay, you landed in the country and you need to be 14 days on the lockdown in a hotel because you don't know if you are coming, for example, from the USA, from Spain, from Italy, where the virus is so strong. So guess what? The person who is the chief of the agency that control the accomplishment of these rules, he in person goes to pick up 4 families that are his friends and take them out to their houses. What do you think of that? That's, again, what I have told you. So, in a case of disaster, you know, I used to say, the only thing that I hope is that we will never face a disaster. My idea, as I said initially, was an earthquake, that we had one already in one province at the north of where I live now, and they are still, this was 4 years ago. What did the government do with the money that the international community gave to help these people that were affected by this disaster? The government took that money for themselves. End of the story. And the people are still living there in the middle of nothing. So, but this is a place that somehow is not close to a big city, you see? So my idea was, my wish was, I really hope that Ecuador will never have to face a real disaster. Say, as Indonesia, in the case of the tsunami, this was 2007, no? 2005, no? So,
And 4, yeah.
imagine,
2004.
yeah, I was
Four.
in Timor.
Yeah.
I was in Timor, and I actually was very scared because I was having my holidays in Spain, and I had to fly next day of the tsunami. So I was really scared because I should landed in Bali before going to East Timor. So I imagine that something like that could happen to us, but this, nobody expected something like this. And in the middle of all this disaster, it happens, this is a cherry of the cocktail, it happens that in different countries of Latin America, we are so close, we are in election year. We will have to vote for a new government next year, February. So you have no idea what does this mean. Everybody is trying to play, the superhero. Everybody is trying to play like the person, the Rambo of the situation who will help everyone. Everybody is doing and utilizing public money from the budget for their own campaigns, for their own political campaigns. That's one part of the equation. The second part of the equation is that, on the other hand, as the government is going out, now they don't care. They simply don't care. So they are taking whatever they want, and they are doing whatever they want, forget about the law, forget about the constitution. They are establishing regimes, new regimes to privatize, I hope that the word is correct in English, particular institutions that have belonged to the state or to the people. For example, to the workers, the National Institute for Social Security is a place like a kind of bank for the workers of the country. Now they have privatized this. They cut the budget of public education. The Constitutional Court is fighting, has decided that they cannot do that because that is not constitutional. So they are fighting among themselves. And the people don't know where are we going and what is going to happen. And as we are, then you have another expressions, as in Brazil, which is the country that is leading the disasters, the deaths, and etc. on the whole continent, where they have a president that I believe he is a person so special that he has decided that the virus is an invention and he's not going to wear any mask and the one who wants to live will live, the ones who wants to die will die, and goodbye auf Wiedersehen. So he said, I don't care, I will kill the person who will make any problem. And that brings us to another issue that is completely against human rights. Immediately, the different governments established a state of exception in the different countries. So you know that when you are in a state of exception, some human rights, the most important of them, are lifted or suspended. So as they use this figure however they please, now they have suspended absolutely all human rights. And what is the result of this situation? That they are using in a way that also you have never seen repression against people who finally decided to go to the street and protest against this lack of governance that we are living right now. That's one panorama, one scenario. The other terrible scenario is that although COVID-19 has hit all of us, it had hit us in different levels and in different ways. So, for example, I work for one TV program, and I was asked to film a kind of advice, telling people stay at home, because if you obey and you stay at home, you can save your life. But of course, you can't stay at home if you live in this city, which is so hot, and so, this is a tropical city. So if you live in a comfortable way, if you have some salary or some money, and you have ensured your food, water, you have cable, you can watch TV, they said enjoy your family, watch TV together, watch movies, play. But what happened? That's the 3% of the population. What happened with the 97% of the population that they don't have what to eat and they are living in miserable conditions? That people is really angry and really furious. And what is going to happen? What is going to happen is that sooner or later, when you don't have anything else to lose, you will go to the streets and you won't care what happened to you. As people start saying, because, journalists are asking, why are you in the street if you know that you can die with this virus, etc.? So people, humble people, they are saying, we are going to die anyway. So either I die starving with no food for my family, or I die from the virus. So maybe it's not sure that I will get the virus, but yes, it's sure that my people is going to starve to death because we don't have any money. So the government, the municipalities, the sectorial governments start giving, some food, this and that, but it's not enough. It's not enough because the country is broken, economically broken. And in the middle of this absolute disaster, the government decides to pay the external debt. Could you imagine? To pay in cash the external debt. So the country is in total bankruptcy. People are dying. People, from my own family, 4 people died. We have to wait for 3, 4, and 5 days to be able to bury these people. We didn't have the place. I mean, you have the place. You have bought in advance the place. But it was so demand that you have to queue to get into the cemetery. Number 2, there were no, as I told you before, there were not enough coffins. They were not. So people start, I mean, the government and the private sector start giving people carton boxes to put there your corpse. And after that, when they didn't have more of these kind of carton coffins, they used plastic bags. And they even tried to make business with the plastic bags that say, for example, 12 plastic bags will cost $5. In the papers, in order to get the money, they wrote 12 plastic bags, $178. Imagine. So overpriced. And even like that. So up to today, people don't know where the corpses of their family, where the bodies of the family are. They don't know that there is a lot of people that has been lost, a lot of dead people that are lost. There are two cases that have been published because the press, the media is totally controlled by the government, absolutely no freedom of expression. They are also making business. They are saying whatever the government wants to say. So there are two cases where the family receive the ashes and they cry, they went into all the rituals and etc. And 15 days later, the person just show up in his or her house, and they just mix, the bodies. They mix the bodies. Could you imagine such a thing? That you have the ashes, and then to whom we have been, doing the funeral rituals and etc. when my mother is alive or my father is alive. That was one scenario. The other scenario, people were not retired from their own homes, and they were in the homes even for 8 days. So people dead already. So they start smelling because they didn't have, I don't know how to say in English, formol. It's a kind of this thing that you use in the corpse so that they won't get like putrefact. So because the smell was unbearable, they took those corpses and they put it in the street. They started burning the people in the middle of the streets. Vultures were surrounding the skies of this city. It was apocalyptic. It was terrible. Well, this is the worst case scenario. But if you take Latin America, you will see that this situation goes more or less like all over the place. Not to talk about the level of violence, xenophobic attitudes, and rejection that either women that are obliged to be in their home in a lockdown with their, with the torturer or with the person who is hitting them, the level of violence against women, the level of rapes inside their own family, it has doubled, tripled. It has been, this is a horrible social problem that you cannot also control. Now, the situation of the foreigner people, the immigrants, that we have here a lot of immigrants that are coming from Venezuela. We have the whole Latin America is full of Venezuelans that are escaping and running away of the terrible humanitarian situation they are living in Venezuela. Well, these are the first victims because also people stigmatize everyone who is a foreigner. And people start even attacking those people who are healthcare people, healthcare staff. They are attacking and they are rejecting because they are terrified to get, with a contagion. It's incredible. So we have, at the south, we have the Venezuelans. At the north, in Central America, we have these long queues of people that are going walking to the USA. So you know, Mr. Trump, that he has to get married Mr. Bolsonaro and be happy the rest of their life because they think more or less alike. So he actually decided nobody is going to come inside the USA. End of the story. He has the power to have it, I mean, to forbid the entrance of anyone in his country. That's totally legal. But these people that have been walking, escaping from the economic and social situation of Central America, where drug traffickers are killing you on daily basis, now they are being stopped in Mexico, where they are also victims either of the drug dealers or of the virus. And also, the foreigners, the immigrants, or the refugees are being expelled from the different countries. For example, in the case of Ecuador, the ones, the refugees and the migrants coming from Venezuela, those that are accused to have committed this or that crime, they are taken all together and sent back to Venezuela. It doesn't matter. So things like that are going on. The prisons that are always in a very bad organization and hygienical conditions are the center and the pinnacle of all this contagion situation. So they allowed a lot of prisoners to get out. They forgot about the others that are trapped over there. So the whole situation, the whole political situation is boiling right now in Latin America, and particularly in Ecuador. This morning, a group of people already decided to go and to protest. They went out to the streets and they started protesting. Police came and started hitting everybody, including the journalists. Now remember, the Latin America is the region that have where to be a journalist and a human rights defender is the most dangerous. That is the most dangerous work that you can choose from all of the others. So still they are being persecuted, they are being hit, they are taken prisoners, they are victims of excessive use of force, they are in a very precarious situation. So human rights-based approach sounds wonderful, but in the real life is totally inexistent here in Latin America. Preparedness, well, was a very good ideal, but we have zero because of corruption and because of lack of institutionality and essentially institutions, no? Lack of strong democratic institutions, lack of governments that are really looking for the well-being of their inhabitants. So that is inexistent here. So we didn't have good policies, we didn't have preparedness, and we didn't have any kind of guarantee or protection in our life and well-being. What has happened, what COVID-19 has shown to the world is a reality. We have never had this, but we were lucky. We didn't have any situation as dramatic as this one to show us that we don't have, as we say in Spanish, where to turn our eyes for help, but just to God. So it's just God, the one that can save you. So that's another issue. Religion that is essentially against and has developed a very important campaign that has cost a lot of money against any kind of recognition of gender issues or women's rights. Religion has taken, a big step forward, and people now is only embracing religion because it's the only possibility for you to survive is to have faith or to be strong. So take my example. I am 70 years old, and I am here talking to myself and to all of you. Thank you very much. For 62 days today. 62 days I have been in a lockdown in my own house without, placing one foot outside my door. I am lucky, and I have two sons that they look for me, and they bring me every 15 days, that they bring me everything that I need to, to eat, to toiletries and things like that. End of the story. And I am here looking to myself in the mirror. There is one place where I work that haven't paid my salary for 5 months. 5 months. There is another place where I work that they have cut the salary off, and they are paying, they say, in an escalating way. So you will receive your payment someday. The situation is terrible, but I must be grateful because I have a nice house, I have comfort, I have food, I am knock, healthy, and I am furious and totally frustrated. I'm full of rage. So, what do you expect from people that are outside, no food, no any place to stay, starving, looking themselves and their families and their children die, and nobody who will help them? They would be as frustrated that I am, and here is going to be what I expect, a bloodbath. This is what is going to happen. So this is the general situation of Latin America. The region that is a wonderful region, full of imagination, very warm people. We are really happy. We like dancing, eating, we are very affectionate. But our governments are corrupt. We don't have political culture. We are in the hands of God. This is the general situation. As a summary, you say, Miriam, summarize the situation of Latin America. I will answer to you. Latin America is in the hands of God. End of the story. Because we don't have where to turn. You see? So any question you want to ask me, I will happily answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor.
Imagine that I have spoken more of the time you gave me.
No, it's okay.
It's okay.
First,
You want to
yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you have to go through all that, and also I think we share to some extent some of your frustration about the situation, about the whereabouts of the states and public policy. I'm going to a little bit summarize your speech in Indonesian language for the participants. Peserta, jadi ya seperti itu ya kondisinya.
Excuse me.
Oh yes.
You allow me to take some pictures so that I will have this memory.
Oh, okay.
Of the screen. Okay. Thank you.
The print screen. I think we have it, but just in case.
Okay. Anyway, I take one and then you send me. Just one. So
yeah, we got it. Yeah, you want to take picture?
Just one. That's okay.
Okay.
Because it doesn't come nice. It was supposed that a very good friend of mine would be joining, but I believe she couldn't because she's not here. Okay.
Yeah.
Then let's go on in Indonesian.
Yeah. Just a second. Seperti itu situasinya di Ecuador dan Latin Amerika secara umumnya. tidak ada gitu ya, pendekatan HAM dalam disaster manajemennya itu tidak berhasil dilakukan dan berakibat pada pelanggaran HAM, baik itu hak ekonomi, sosial, budaya, dan kemudian tadi disampaikan terakhir juga pelanggaran hak-hak sipil dan politik gitu. Bisa dilihat dari, nanti mungkin bisa ya kita follow up, bisa dilihat dari persekusi terhadap jurnalis. Profesor Miriam menjelaskan bahwa mengapa ini terjadi, konteksnya adalah seperti apa negara itu pada asalnya sebelum COVID ini terjadi gitu, bahwa memang sudah ada korupsi, kemudian tidak terdapat social protection, jaringan perlindungan sosial gitu, tidak ada universal healthcare, asuransi universal, kemudian unemployment insurance tunjangan untuk pengangguran, dan bentuk-bentuk jaringan pengawasan sosial lainnya itu tidak ada. Dan padahal di sana social class divisionnya sangat kuat gitu. Dan Ibu Miriam, Profesor Miriam kemudian mengakhiri bahwa there is Latin America is in the hands of God. That's what you say, not in the hands of the state is absent in this.
Absent.
Yeah. We have a lot of
problems.
Yeah, we have a lot of people asking some questions. Government financial help. I think about the financial help, you already mentioned that there is food relief. Is there also financial relief in Ecuador? Like,
Stop that. What the government has done is to place more taxes against the people.
Oh, taxes.
They are in this very moment, they are discussing in the assembly, they are discussing a new law which is called humanitarian law. I am not sure, because I was preparing for this intervention, I am not sure if they already adopted this, but this law is to place taxes for everyone in the country, everyone, to pay to the state, to place taxes in your house if you are the owner of a house, which will be a lot of money, to cut the salaries, to cut employment. There are hundreds of people that have been fired with zero support, because they are using a legal figure that you should know, which is force majeure. So this is a case that they cannot handle, so they will just fire you without any kind of indemnization for you, nothing. So rather than to give the people money, they are asking and taking from the people money.
Oh, okay.
This only happens in Ecuador.
Yeah, there is a question from Mbak Tri Murni. She asked about any financial help, so that's it. So how is it called humanitarian law for exact? I mean, is it?
Thank you, because one of these days you will call me and I will be in jail, because what I am doing is telling them via Twitter, how do you dare to call humanitarian law to a law that is killing us? This morning, people that went to the streets in order to protest, that was the motto. You are killing us. You are killing us. I have given several interviews in the radio, because, modesty aside, I am a well-known person here, and what I said is, we must survive because we must request accountability from these people. We have to go to the street. Forget about the virus. We have to go and fight against this government and what they are doing. But also, then you have a civil society that somehow is so disappointed on the government and in the political structure that they don't want to listen anything. They know that nothing is going to happen, nothing is going to change. They are telling you it's the same. It will be one gang after the another gang, and it will be another gang. The thing is that all of them are thieves. That's the decision of the people. That's the voice of the people. What do you think about that?
So yeah. So you were
they are they are using words in order to confuse you. For example, they call humanitarian flights, but each ticket cost a lot of money, 10 times what you will pay. But they call it humanitarian flights because they are rescuing Ecuadorians that are coming back to Ecuador, that they have been estranged in any other country. And now they are calling humanitarian law this one that is cutting the budget, for example, to health, to healthcare, to education, to everything that is social support, and privatizing and imposing taxes on you.
Yeah. There is nothing humanitarian about it actually. Only the name.
Just
What is
the name.
Yes. Okay. We go on to a number of other questions. Before we going to, I think Yanti's question is specifically on women. I'm going to ask something that is still related to the topic from Mbak Octaviani. She asked, what social capital does the local community have to reduce the number of victims? How do people build networks to overcome their particular? So is there anything like social capital that can be used by the society themselves, to help themselves?
Well, what we have, as we have sectional governments, there are certain governments, sectors of the country that have a kind of mayors that are supporting people. For example, not the state, not the general government, not the central government, but sectoral governments. The mayor of cities, the municipalities, they are trying to support people. Private sector together supporting these activities, this proposal, are helping people, but it's not enough. There are certain NGOs that are also working, trying to incorporate people to help themselves. But this is not the generality, this is not the general movement. So in this very moment, people have no resilience. They don't have how to bounce back. They don't have to bounce back. Mainly because the whole country is locked down. But then you see our mayor, who is a woman, and because of woman, she has received all kind of attacks. She has developed a lot of activities, and she has, together with the former mayor, placed together the private sector and the sectorial government to support people. But it's not enough because there is no money. And on the other hand, it's also the economic pressure that, they have to come to work. Because if we don't produce, we don't have money. So, it's like you are in the middle, against a hard rock. That's the situation.
Yeah,
between a sport and a hard rock. That's our situation now.
Ya. Jadi kalau di Ecuador bentuk-bentuk bukan social capital, bantuan dengan sesama masyarakat itu ada, tapi karena situasinya sedemikian buruknya itu tidak terlalu membantu. Dia juga menyebutkan mengenai wali kotanya sebenarnya cukup baik dalam membuka atau membangun jaringan antara pemerintah dan private sector dan seterusnya, tapi tetap itu tidak cukup kan, karena pada dasarnya tadi kebijakan nasionalnya pada social protection netnya sangat buruk. Oke, I'm going to check some more questions here. Or is there anyone that has already dropped the question, want to talk to Professor Miriam directly? You can turn on your microphone. Yeah, I think we got somebody. Okay. Yeah, somebody is asking about international organization, institution. How do they actually work in this case of human rights abuse worldwide in Latin America and also in other developing countries in the context of COVID-19? Yeah.
The problem is as follows. In the case of Ecuador particularly, because I have seen that the other countries are receiving international support. In the case of Ecuador, the international help is quite limited because we don't have good reputation with the international community. I mean, it's public that all the money that was gathered to support the victims of the earthquake about 4 years ago disappeared at the hands of the former government.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Very difficult. What they have done is to receive loans from the International Monetary Fund, that they have given us money, but on the other hand, we have paid them a lot of money also. There are $8 million coming from the European Union, but what are $8 million when we are 70 million people, where only the 2% of the population can live properly? The rest is in a very difficult situation. And we haven't spoken about people, indigenous people, who are totally abandoned. It's not only refugees, it's not only women, it's not only migrants, but indigenous people, they are on their own.
Yeah, we forget about them. Yeah.
Normally they don't have access, proper access, neither to justice nor to health care. Now in situation, they are on their own. So it's quite dramatic, you know. It's quite dramatic.
It's brutal, actually.
It's brutal. One thing that, you know, that I am so happy that we can have this conversation is because there is a kind of divorce between the world and Latin America.
Sorry, a kind of what?
Divorce.
Divorce?
We don't know each other. We are like apart. We know what is going on in Africa. We know what is going on in Asia. We know what is going on in Europe and in the USA. But when it comes to Latin America, we don't know anything. So, you in Indonesia are not quite aware of what is going on in Latin America.
Yeah, I think.
Like somehow we are set apart. And one of the reasons that I assume this is because it's very rare that people my generation speaks English. That's why I speak the English of, you know, Puss in Boots.
Yeah.
Because normally we were not taught English. Just now, this generation is the one that has been taught English since they are.
Since so the primary education.
Eri is asking me something, and I lost her question. Do you recognize any high risk of gender? Of course. Yes, totally. In our case, 70% increased, because also they don't have, somebody is calling me. Let me see. Oh, okay. is my colleague that she has taken photos, so she has attended.
Mbak Eri mungkin muncul. Okay.
The problem, Eddie, of course, it has increased enormously. Normally, this is a very patriarchal country. Latin America is still with the norms of patriarchy, essentially very harsh patriarchal rules. So, in this situation where you are absolutely depressed, you are locked down, you cannot get out, the victims of violence has increased in a very dramatic way. And also, lack of mechanisms in place in order to support you really when you are a victim are not reaching you. If food is not reaching you, do you think help for women that are mistreated or for girls or boys that get raped will be gotten? No. No, that's not the case. This is a very difficult situation. And this pandemic has actually increased all over the world. This is a problem. It has increased all over the world, domestic violence and violence against women and children, all over the world. Not only in Ecuador or in Latin America, but all over the world. Somehow, when it comes to human rights, we have gotten backwards, completely backwards. It's very, very sad, but this is the truth.
Yeah. So, Mbak Eri, do you want to say something? Eri, where are you? Yeah.
She's there.
Hello, yeah. There are some questions from our students. Actually, we have Latin American, what is it called? A course called Latin American Studies in our department. One question from Sonia. Based on many issues that happen in Latin America, many people recommend to do a governance reform, but to actually implement, realize the reform, it takes a lot and long process. From your point of view,
to do what reform? I didn't hear you.
She said government reform. Yeah, of course, reform.
In order to do that, we have either to wait for the next election, or we have to wait for the president to resign. But he's not in the predisposition to resign. The election will be 21st of February, but then most likely they will stay because we don't have money to organize an election process. This is one of the problems, no? Somebody is asking me about Cuba. You have to know that when this government took power, after the previous one that was very close to Cuba, we had here 400 doctors in the middle of, as a product of a contract, exchange professional contract services. But when this government took power, they requested the Cuban doctors to leave. So Cuba is like another case that is not in the same situation that the rest of Latin America. Believe it or not, they are in a better situation than us, no? But this government doesn't want to recognize such thing.
Okay.
Yeah, you are right. This is Ayusia who is asking me this. Ayusia Kusuma. She's saying that yes, Cuba has a quite different reaction. That's true.
That's true.
The way in which they are even helping. But of course, as I was telling you about this political pendulum, the previous government was quite close to Cuba and the socialist model, political model. The current government have decided that these are criminals and they don't want to have them closed. No? So there is a total, although diplomatically speaking, there have not been an end of relations. Effectively, there is a kind of a, a separation between the previous close friendship that they had with the Ecuadorian government.
Yeah, I think that's it for Ayusia Sabita. Actually, she is our fellow lecturer in our department. But Ayusia, do you want to follow up? No, okay. Well, Mbak Eri already inequality related to human consumption.
Oh, yeah. Shalima is asking me about government policies towards income inequality. Forget about that. We don't have money to pay salaries. Forget about inequality. I am telling you, I haven't received my salary for 5 months.
Yeah. Jadi, let alone.
I am a person who is in a high level position. Imagine the situation of the others. They have been either fired or they haven't been paid. That's disaster.
So let alone dealing with inequality, people are actually going into economic crisis right now.
Yes, the country is in a complete bankruptcy, and we don't have a way. We cannot see a way out so far. That's a terrible truth, but it's the truth. We don't have. We cannot see how this is going to end.
Yeah, actually,
people are very nervous because they don't know if they are going to keep their jobs, what is going to happen. We don't have our own currency. We are our economy is on dollars, so we don't know if the dollarization, as it is called, will be kept or we are going to change currencies. We don't know anything so far because there are no clear policies. The government has not been able to come out and tell the citizens what we are going to do is this. What the government has done in order to, we say wash their hands is, okay, all the mayors of the country are free to decide what to do with the people of their cities. If they decided to allow them to get out of the lockdown, if they keep the lockdown or what.
But basically, every mayor lack the resources to implement anything necessary.
Exactly. And now what they want is just to charge a population with taxes so that this will help the country, the national budget to survive.
Has the bill passed at the Senate?
They were discussing this afternoon, so I am not sure if the bill has passed today.
It will pass today. Okay.
Should pass today, but I cannot tell you for sure because I didn't have time to check before I connected.
Things are going so quickly in the legislative, I think, with the crisis. I'm going to inform the participants in Indonesian for a second. Jadi pertanyaan mengenai apa ya barusan? Mengenai bagaimana pemerintah menangani inequality, yaitu tidak bisa dilakukan karena pada dasarnya krisis ekonomi ini kemudian dialami juga oleh semua kalangan. Pemerintah kemudian menyerahkan penanganan ini kepada pemerintah daerah, tadi kata ibunya, mayor, tapi resource-nya sangat kurang seperti itu. Jadi ya susah untuk membuat kebijakan yang bisa membantu masyarakatnya. Secara umum tadi dijelaskan juga di presentasi, ketika disaster ini terjadi, COVID ini terjadi, tidak ada authority, tidak ada preparedness, contingency. Jadi kalau kita misalnya ada gugus tugas BNPB gitu ya, kalau di sana nggak jelas gitu. Kemudian informasinya buruk ya, penyampaian ke masyarakatnya tidak transparan, lack of accountability. Kemudian ya dilakukan lockdown tapi masyarakatnya banyak yang menolak. Coba sih. I'm going to check if there are new questions or there are questions that I missed. I think I missed some questions above. A question from Novian. Actually, he tries to bring it to a more global context. Novian said that there are some opinions that only developed countries will survive this pandemic because of economic bad impact, but in reality, it shows that US has the highest case, and some socialists, Vietnam actually is pretty impressive. I don't know if you heard about them. What's your opinion? So, how does development performance interact with the country capability?
No, I don't understand the question exactly. What is the question?
Oh, okay. He asked, what is your opinion about, is it true that only developed countries will survive this pandemic?
No. I mean, you cannot say, the world is not going to be destroyed. That's a fact.
Yeah.
This is not the first time that humanity suffers a pandemic. That's another historical truth. This is not the first time, and we have survived. So humanity is not going to disappear. And let's not get into different theories of conspiration, conspirative theories, because we won't reach anything which is scientific. The fact is that so far, if you see the numbers, there are some places that they are striving. There are other places where they have been able to control the virus. There are other places that are trying to put different safeguards for the people, but it depends of the level. From my perspective, it will depend of the level of commitment that every government has with their population. And this commitment is based on the respect and guarantee of human rights. It also is deeply related and linked to the level of transparency, accountability, and honesty that the government will have with their own people. If you don't have all these elements in place, it will be very difficult for everybody, as is our case. But this doesn't mean that Ecuador is going to disappear. We are badly hit, but we are not going to disappear.
Yes, okay. So for the question about development, Novian, and other questions, so there is no actually a guarantee that a developed country will deal with this better. It is not about the development level, but about the commitment of the state, of the government. And also, I think, is it democracy? The level of democracy is, it's more, it is more influential in this case, like you said, the accountability.
It depends of the idiosyncrasy of every country and the way in which the government handles itself and handle the population, the level of discipline that the people have also. I mean, it's not only a matter of the government or the state, but also the cooperation of the people. If the people has been trained on citizenship obligations, they will be prone to support the government. If the people has no any confidence in the government, they will do whatever they want, as this is what is going on in my own country, no, and in Latin America as general, because we have lost faith in the politicians, in the same structure, in the same stories, and the different gangs that are taking power just to make money for themselves, you see. But still, in a moment, scientifically speaking, society has rules. And these rules, these rules of development of the society from the political point of view are, you know, are facts. So it will take us maybe a lot of time, but sooner or later, this will have to change, because humanity is not going to disappear. The system in which we are living is changing and must be changed. So it will be the system that the political, socioeconomic system that we are living now, that's the one that is disappearing, not humanity.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. That is something that I totally strongly believe. And this pandemic has only put more strain on the fact that the system has failed to all of us, that this is not the right way to go, that we must put people first, but not just saying, not just declaring, but actually really doing it. That's what I believe.
Yes. The business as usual isn't working. So yeah, there will be a transformation. I don't think we can take any more questions. Oh, Tias just said something in the chat.
Yes.
Well, Tias, maybe you want to say something?
No, just that I have been really happy to share with you my concerns and what we have lived here. And, you know, I believe that Indonesia somehow has a strong NGO system, has a civil society that is organized. You have gone also over a lot of suffering and a lot of issues, and you are millions, but you are also strong in your own way. You have culture, you have a tradition, and I believe that you are in a better position to resist a lot of issues. And I believe also that this is a struggle, it's a human struggle in order to improve the society. And as I said, just to share what we have experienced here in Latin America, vis-a-vis what you are experiencing there in Asia, where you have the influence of different powers. No, here we have the direct influence of the USA, direct influence. Over there, you have different influences, no? Starting by China, Japan, etc. You have that influence also. It's a kind of a game of power, no? Something like that. But Indonesia is an enormous country with a lot of strength that has endured a lot of suffering. And I am sure that you will also endure whatever it comes your way. As I am sure we will endure this, and we will get up and start changing the society. We will have to suffer. We don't know what. I expect the worst, as I said, but even that will be a previous step to change a little the system and the world in which we are living now.
Yeah.
That's a general assessment.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor. Mbak Lia, do you think we still have more time?
Yes.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
there anyone?
We
want
promised till 11:30 to Professor Miriam. I'm afraid we are taking too much of her time.
I am happy to be here, so you can take the time that you want.
Oke. Pertanyaannya Faisal udah kayaknya tadi ya.
Atas
Ada lagi Mbak?
yang atas kayaknya
Oh, women. Oh, already. Women question is already answered, yeah. That the vulnerability is increasing all over the world. Actually, you mentioned something about in order to reform, it is only possible if the government change in the near future or with the election that you said. But do you think the transfer of power or new leaders will change anything? Actually,
I don't have hopes on that regard.
oh, actually,
I don't have hopes on that regard. I believe that, I believe that now, if we achieve the possibility to elect a very strong leader that has experience, maybe we can succeed with not as damage that normally we will do it otherwise. But I am not so sure if that person who actually has been a very successful politician and is already a person who is 75, 6 years old, wants to take the chance to fail in the election. I am not sure about that. The panorama is quite uncertain right now. But it all will depend on the ideas of the new government, because this government is a total disaster. This government is a disaster. So anything that will change this government will be better than the one that we have now. That's what I believe.
yeah, okay, yeah. I think. Oh, another question about Cuban governments from Dwi Agni. We want to
Oh, you are asking me about Cuba.
yeah.
In the past, yes. Well, you can never justify one death. No, one killing is not justified. I don't know who was the one who said that famous phrase that when you are killing one person, you are killing the whole humanity with that person. No. The problem is that there are rules in the international law system, and the international law is recognizing self-determination. Not only self-determination, but also sovereignty in their own territory. So if they have a government that has been accepted and they are keeping themselves in power, I don't see how they can be thrown out. You see, it's the same issue that Venezuela. Venezuela has a president. Nobody likes that president, but he's a president. And according to international law, that's the legitimate president of that republic. So international community cannot intervene, because then we are violating one of the most important issues in the human rights ethic rule, which is a respect to the self-determination of the people. That's what happens in the Cuban government, and that's what happens in the Venezuelan government, and that's what happens in every government of the world. Because we can accuse, no, I just smile because you are talking Agni, Duan Agni. Cuban government has been accused of some human rights violations, torture, arbitrary detention, unfair trials, and the death penalty imposed without trial. I am asking you, you can erase the first sentence of this question. and right, whatever country, whatever government, totalitarian government, including USA now, and
Yeah.
the question will fit perfectly. The USA has been accused, no? China has been accused, no?
Okay. I think
So
our time is
it
up.
always depends of the political position that you have. It always depends on that.
Okay.
Yes. Mbak Lia, udah.
That is
I think we are going to. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up our discussion. Um, yeah, Mbak Lia will read out some conclusion in Indonesian language, or do you want to say something to Professor Miriam before wrap?
yes. Okay. Thank you. Prof. Miriam, thank you so much for your explanation in a Latin America perspective. When you speak, I imagining what happened today in our country, in our region. I think Asia treatment to their society is better than in Latin America. What do you think? That's what I imagine because we are Indonesia. Okay, we have a corruption, but the treatment of country to us is better than what happened now in Latin America. Maybe there's unemployment everywhere, but the backup from our government is exist. Besides our non-governmental organization is everywhere help people. We try to help each other, uh, try to back up each other. So that's why maybe the problem is coming from the people itself because now everywhere people go out and walk on the street without afraid of the viruses. But uh, yeah, government warned us to just stay at home, but maybe because the life, because they have to work, they have to find a better life in this situation. Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Miriam. It's nice to see you.
I'm
Nice
so
to talk to
happy.
you.
I
Um,
am very happy to be with you. I
yes,
hope that that we can have these kind of conversations once in a while. It's good to keep
yes,
in touch because
yes,
at the end of the day we are the global south and
yeah,
we are the Pacific and the South Pacific place.
Yeah,
So it's no good that people that it's no good that people that love each other must be so far away. So we must continue this discussion
yes,
sometime.
be great.
yes.
So
Thank
are
you so much.
we? Yeah,
Terima
we are
kasih
Thank you
buat
so
glad
very
to
much.
be here.
terima
Okay.
It
kasih buat teman-teman.
transitional space.
Yes. Thank you, Prof. Miriam. Maybe next time we
Ciao.
will uh like this again or with different issues with different theme. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Maybe now it's time to sleep.
All my love for all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, love
And
you.
Hope
Love
that we
you.
will see each other soon.
yeah, sure. Take care, Prof. Miriam. Take care. Have a good day.
Ciao.
Have a good rest, actually.
Stream,
You too.
okay.
Ciao, Nurul. Ciao, Nur. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Untuk peserta diskusi kita akhiri. Terima kasih atas kehadirannya. Selamat. Ditunggu sertifikatnya akan dikirim ke email masing-masing. Sampai bertemu lagi di webinar Hiuinam-Unsoed dan UIN Aludin Makassar berikutnya. Thank you very much, Professor. We're ending.
Ciao. See you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
dream.